Hi, my geeky ohana! Back to the filming of Season 2. I'm trying to finish these quickly since Season 2 is just around the corner. This video will cover October 2021 through February 2022. I think that potentially covers episodes 3 through 8, but as you'll see, unlike Season 1, I was unable to really track when the blocks began. Expect some chaos. Also expect that I may be missing a lot of things. It takes a long time to check the whereabouts of every cast member on each day, and I'm trying to get this done before Season 2 releases. Actually, I was trying to get this particular video done before the teaser trailer. If by chance I failed, I am not going to add anything from the teaser. Sorry. Okay, with that said, here's my obligatory spoiler warning. Don't watch anymore if you want to go into Season 2 blind. I ended my last video on October 5th, when the DOP for Block 1 flew home. But prior to that, on September 30th, a child actor who looks like she could be Nynaeve's daughter was scheduled to head to Prague for a few weeks. Out of respect for this actor's privacy, I'm going to use a picture of young Zoe Robbins from The Killian Curse. I'm going to advance the calendar a bit so we can see more of October. On October 5th, the production headed out to Hruba Skala. Also on this day, there was a casting call for Asian extras who could play the viola or the contrabass flute for filming in November at Jindřichův Hradec. On October 6th, we know they filmed an episode 4 scene courtesy of this Instagram story from director Sanaa Hamri. October 7th was a press junket day for Season 1. While the main cast was busy with interviews, this was the day that a blood-covered nude body double for Celine filmed. In the Season 2 sneak peek, there was this scene with a blood-covered woman we're going to assume is Celine. And this could be misleading editing, but this appears to be the dark one, heading to where Bloody Celine is. So I'm going to note that this scene with Celine and the dark one was filmed on this day. I'm not sure how accurate this is, but this episode 3 still of Lan was dated as having been taken on this day, so I'm going to note it on the calendar. On the 8th, we had our New York Comic-Con announcement that Kira Coveney, Natasha O'Keefe, and Mira Sayal would be joining the cast of Season 2. Moving ahead to the 10th. Greg Chilingirian was not in Prague, and as far as I know, he was not there the rest of the month. Kaya Alexander was in Prague and posted this picture on that day. I think Kaya stayed in Prague all the way until February, but I'm not 100% sure. On October 11th, Kira returned to Prague. A casting call for musicians went out on this day. This may not be for the Wheel of Time, but some of the instruments include the viola and the contrabass flute, which you may recall were the instruments in the previous casting call for musicians. Finally, on this day, Arnas was in London. On October 12th, Johan was busy with filming commitments, which may or may not have been for the Wheel of Time, so I'll note the possibility of him being in Prague. On October 13th, Gary Beadle was in Prague, and Kira shared a picture of her Prague coffee break. On the 14th, I think there were night shoots at a quarry. The 15th had Jennifer making me hungry with her steak dinner, and also had more filming at a quarry somewhere. On the 16th, we know Natasha Jaya Henry was in London, so we can remove her from possibly being in Prague. Kira and Kaya were bonding on this day, arranging flowers, creating ceramics, and hanging out. This was also the day Ayula rapped on Cocaine Bear. Here's the last 2 weeks in review, but I'm going to add a few more notes. On October 10th, Taylor was not in Prague, and on the 11th, Mira was also not in Prague. Also, I've added Min's aunts to the calendar so we don't forget they were there until the 8th or 9th. Moving on to the last 2 full weeks of October. On the 17th, there was filming at the Barrandov Studios backlot around this circled area. On the 18th, this large area near Nijboru was set aside for the show's use until December. I still have no idea what they filmed here. On October 19th, the writer for episode 3 was on set, so I assume that an episode 3 scene was filmed this day. But also, this still from episode 4 was taken that day. Moraine appears to be in the four-gate-like area at the Barrandov Studios backlot. Also that day, Gary and Kaya were hanging out. On the 20th, this episode 4 still of Elaine was taken. This still of Egwene, Nynaeve, and Elaine looks to be in the same location, and I'm guessing it's also for episode 4. Speaking of Kira, she later posted a cute story about her forgetting to add spinach to a meal she made for the sole purpose of using up her spinach. It's okay, Kira, we all have moments like that. That night, Gary Beadle had night work, and some sunset photos from the cast and crew were taken, including from Yosha. On the 21st, filming took place in a forest near Kralov Stolets in Doksy. It was a windy day on location and also back in Prague, as seen in this post from Jennifer. Yosha posted this photo, though I have no idea where it was taken, and Gary posted this story from the Czech Republic. His last one confirmed to be from the Czech Republic this month. On the 22nd, I can't show the post, but an episode 3 scene was filmed in either Tarvalon or the White Tower. On this day, my Watch Series colleague Lane noticed that 2 Red Deer Stag trainers were added to the IMDb for the Wheel of Time. As of the time of this recording, they're credited in the first episode of the season, but the addition at this time could indicate that they actually filmed in part of episodes 3 or 4. On the 24th, Madeline posted a photo with Kai, Donald, Donald's girlfriend, Madeline, Marcus, and Sybil, the cast coordinator. Jumping ahead to the 27th, that day was the day the official trailer was released. On that day, Rosamund called into the Dusty Wheel and said this: "I can't do a video call because I'm on set, so you're actually getting it straight from the front lines. The scene I'm filming tonight is all about trust. That's right at the heart of it, is who can you trust?" This was around 7:36 p.m. Central European Summertime, so it sounds like this trust scene was a night shoot. On the 28th, Kate Fleetwood was in London. On the 29th, Sophie Okonedo was filming Raymond and Ray. She was spotted filming this until November. And on the 30th, Mira was at Letters Live in London. And that wraps up the last 2 weeks of October. Let's move on to the next couple of weeks. On the 31st, we had some Halloween fun with Maddie and Zoe. Meanwhile, Hamid was in London. The 1st of November marks the first of 5 planned filming days at Jindřichův Hradec. As a reminder, these are the locations in the palace that were set aside for filming: the rondel and the courtyard fronting it, the first courtyard, the third courtyard, green rooms on the first floor of Adam's building, the Black Kitchen and the area in front of it, the premises of the 2 halls in the Spanish wing, and the area in front of the granary. Also on the 1st was Abdul Salis's first day of rehearsals for Habeas Corpus, so we know he's unavailable to film on this day and potentially for a while. On the 2nd, Priyanka and Emmanuel were in Prague. The 3rd was the day that the musicians were scheduled to film at Jindřichův Hradec. On the 4th, filming appears to have taken place in Adam's building. Yosha also posted a picture of this very dirty dressing room sign. On the 5th, Priyanka appeared to be in hair and makeup, but if she filmed, I'm not sure that it was at Jindřichův Hradec or if it was at another location. It's worth noting that on this day, I know the director for episodes 5 and 6, Maya Vervilo, was definitely in Prague. However, per her LinkedIn, she started pre-production on the show in September, so I don't know when she actually started filming for her blog. On the 6th, Kira left Prague. On the 8th, Mira was in London, accepting a Witty Writer Award at the Comedy Woman in Print Prize. And Marie-France Alvarez started her first week filming Louis XXVIII. On the 9th, Kira posted from London. Meanwhile in Prague, Priyanka shared this photo of her with Kate Fleetwood. It appears there was a pizza party that night with Jennifer, Priyanka, Kate, Taylor, and Rafe. On the 11th, Jennifer left Prague, but Katie Lung was in the city. On the 12th, Will Tudor posted a picture of himself in a Prague hotel. Also on that day, the main cast were busy with the international press junket for Season 1. The next day, they headed off to London for the Season 1 premiere in a fancy private jet. So, here's what might be weeks 9 and 10 of Block 2. Going into the next 2 weeks, I'm guessing we're in Block 3 now. On November 14th, Marie-France started her second week on Louis XXVIII, and on the 15th, Sanaa Hamri was visiting home in Tangier, Morocco. Meanwhile, in London, we've got our beautiful main cast on the blue carpet for the premiere. Also attending the premiere were Season 2 actors Taylor Napier, Kate Fleetwood, and Hamid Animashan. Alvaro couldn't be at the premiere, but he did send good vibes with a picture of himself holding the Great Hunt. On the 16th, Laura Crowhurst was in Prague, and that night there were night shoots near or at the river village. On the 18th, filming took place at Panska Skala. Here's a photo of shooting late at night. The 19th was the day Season 1 premiered on Prime Video. Yay! On the 22nd, Sanaa Hamri was location scouting somewhere. On the 23rd, Priyanka was in Amsterdam. The next day, it seems like Laura might still be in Prague since she was staying at a hotel. On the 26th, Sanaa was back in Prague. That night, more filming was done at or near the river village. Before I wrap up these 2 weeks, this is a good time to share these 2 photos of night shoots at the river village. These were taken in November, however, I'm not sure exactly when in November they were taken. And that's weeks 1 and 2, maybe, of Block 3. Here we have November 28th through December 11th. On the 29th, this photo of the Baranzov Studios backlot was timestamped with this date. It looks like there's quite a bit of activity, so this may be a filming day. Also on the 29th, the forest near Kralupy Stolec was set aside for the production to use until December 13th. December 1st through 4th seemed like the most likely filming days as room for parking was also set aside on those days. On December 1st, Alejandra Bacelar Pereira was filming. On the 2nd, Gary Beadle was back in Prague. Laura posted a video of herself on horseback. I have absolutely no idea if this was taken in Prague or somewhere else, but since her role is of a stable master, I'm going to note the possibility that she was still in Prague. On the 3rd, Sanaa Hamri was headed to Sept, which makes me think that filming for Block 4 started. On the 4th, Maddie and Zoe were having fun in the snow. On the 5th, Gary posted a picture of Prague again. On the 6th, Guy Roberts, Arnas Federovicius, and Greg Chilingirian were officially announced in a Deadline article. On the 6th, both Gary and Daniel posted from Prague. On the 7th, there was filming at Jordan Studios, and on the 9th, there was also filming at Jordan Studios. Yosha took an icy plunge on this day, and Kaye shared a photo of snowy Prague. Meanwhile, Sanaa was setting early alarms for the next day, I assume for a flight given the plane emoji. December 10th was the last day of filming for 2021, and Sanaa made it on her flight. There are some noteworthy things that happened past this week, and I'll just mention them. On the 15th, Rima Tewiata took a touristy photo with an owl in Prague. On the 18th, Maya Vervilo left Prague with her pup. On the 25th, Kaya posted a picture of herself and a friend in Prague. As I mentioned earlier, I think she stayed in the country through February at least. Finally, Lindsay Duncan was filming in Prague right before Christmas, so here's a more complete calendar for these 2 weeks of filming. Moving on to 2022. On January 2nd, Sanaa was back at it and leaving home to work on the 2nd season. On the 3rd, she was scouting in Morocco, I think, and on the 4th, she was in Prague. I don't have anything noteworthy for the rest of this week, so I'm going to adjust the calendar by a week. Nyokabi Gethaiga was in Prague from January 9th through the 23rd. This is according to my sources, and I can't verify, so take it with a grain of salt. On the 11th, Priyanka Bose returned to Prague, and on the 12th, Taylor posted about the Prague weather, so we know he's there. On January 13th and 14th, there were night shoots that I think were at the river village, but I'm not sure. On the 17th, a scene was delayed due to bad weather, and Priyanka shared a picture of herself next to her dressing room sign. On the 19th, Daniel posted a picture of his trailer with a caption that he was back at it, and Sanaa posted a picture of her muddy boots after filming. Also on that day, we know Emmanuel is back in Prague thanks to this photo from Priyanka. On the 20th, Jennifer also returned to Prague, and Alvaro Morte was spotted in the city by fans. I'm not exactly sure when he got there. This Instagram post from January 26 says the poster met him weeks ago at the beginning of 2022. But based off of other fan photos, he was definitely there between the 20th and the 24th. I'm guessing he could have arrived as early as the week of the 9th, but I'm just going to note the days we know he was there for sure. Kai and Sanaa both posted snowy pictures, and the planned filming for that day was in the forest near Kralupy Stolec in Doksy. That's all I have for this week, so I'll add in notes about some characters that may have been on set. As an aside, I suspect Rima is still in Prague because if she had finished in December, I'm not sure why she would have stayed in the Czech Republic so long after filming ended, but this is just a guess on my part. Here we have the next 2 weeks. On January 23rd, Daniel posted this photo that sort of looks like it could have been taken in a trailer. Also on this day, they filmed at Barandov Studios. On the 25th, they also filmed at a studio, and on the 26th, there was filming at Jordan Studios. Alvaro appeared to be home during this January 26th Instagram Live. And finally, one more note about this day, there were scenes with either Jessica, Baron, or possibly both. Yes, I realize that's a bit confusing. On the 27th, Madeline got a special Vegemite delivery in a trailer. On the 28th and on the 29th, there was filming at one of the studios again. The 29th was also Maddie's birthday. Happy birthday, Maddie. On the 30th, she posted this video of a birthday celebration. Present at this party was Kira, Ondra, who's part of the crew, Celia, whose role is unknown, Donal, Yosha, Hamid, Daniel, Sybil, the cast coordinator, and Zoe. Maddie shared this lovely photo with Zoe, Kira, and Sybil later on. Meanwhile, Mira Sayal was in London watching Life of Pi on the West End. On the 31st, it seems like Alvaro was in Prague again. And moving on to February, Kira was in London, Jennifer was undergoing a full-body scan for VFX, and it's worth mentioning that at some point in February, Natasha O'Keeffe was in Prague. On the 3rd, filming took place at Karlova Koruna and continued through the 4th. Scenes at this location involved an important marble seat seen in Season 1. On the 4th, Alvaro was spotted in Malaga, Spain, so he's no longer in Prague. So here's what we know about these 2 weeks. Unfortunately, I don't know when Celia arrives, so I can't add him to the calendar. Moving on to February 6th through the 19th. On the 6th, Sanal stated she had 1 more month in Prague, and Daniel said he was flying around the world for the weekend. Also, we know Emmanuel and Hamid are in Prague, hanging out with fellow actor Martins Imhangbi of Bridgerton fame. On the 7th, Priyanka was at Jordan Studios, and Jennifer looks to also be at a studio. They're both bundled up, and Jennifer's jacket sleeve says Liane on it. On the 8th, Celia posted this photo to Instagram, and the buildings in the background look like they could be in Prague, so I'll list him as possibly being in the city. Elsewhere, Arunas was filming the Last Kingdom movie. I don't know how long he was working on the movie, but he did return to Wheel of Time later, as we saw him in one of the stills taken in Morocco. Yosha posted this photo that was likely taken during the first block of filming, possibly during early September. We can identify Justine Yule Gilmer, Hamid, Donal, Madeline, Zoe, Taylor, Rafe, Jessica, Olga Riebiger, Guy, Arunas, Yosha, Jennifer, Emmanuel, Marcus, Kai, Natasha, Kate, Thomas Napper, and Kira. On the 9th, filming took place at Jordan Studios. Also on this day, it appears Stuart Graham might have been in Prague, based off of this reply to a tweet of his that is now gone. We weren't sure if he would be returning for Season 2, but his agency did state that he'd be in Season 2. On the 11th, this still from Episode 6 was taken. It looks like this was at the Barandov Studio backlot. By the way, if you haven't noticed, I haven't been numbering the weeks because I no longer have any idea what weeks we might be anymore. Sorry. On the 14th, Laura Crowhurst tweeted that she was back doing that secret thing, and that it was an incredible day. This could be for the Wheel of Time, but it could also be for something else entirely, so I'll just put her as a maybe for being around. Also on this day, wolf dogs were filming near or at the River Village. On the 16th, Yosha shared this blue carpet for push-ups photo, and he also shared this photo from the Barandov Studios backlot. Here's a slightly better look. On the 17th, Alexander Karim flew out to Prague, and we got these 2 photos from Daniel and Yosha. On the 18th, Vincent Kirschbaum was getting ready to film. I'm guessing his filming takes place the following week, but that's just a guess. On the 19th, Kira, Hamid, Marcus, Zoe, and Sybil went to Paris. Before we move on to the last bit of February, here's the last couple of weeks with more of the calendar filled in. Oh, and the 19th was also Zoe's birthday. Happy birthday, Zoe! So here's the last week or so of February. On the 22nd, Alexander Karim was filming, and Faris was away from home. He might have been filming for the Wheel of Time, or he might have been doing something else. On the 23rd, director Maya Vervilo was in Morocco, so anything else filmed this week must be for Block 4. Madeline was back home in Sydney. Rosamund and Daniel were bonding in Prague. On the 24th, Natasha was at the Peaky Blinders premiere in Birmingham, and Alexander returned home from his week in Prague. Priyanka posted that she was wrapped for the season, and she posted this picture with Kate Fleetwood and Taylor Napier. This was posted early on February 25th, but I'm guessing it was taken on the 24th. On the 25th, Priyanka posted more photos that were probably taken on the 24th. Looks like there was a little party with Jennifer, Kai, Zoe, Zonal, Kate, Priyanka, Taylor, and maybe Rafe. Also on this day, Vincent posted from Prague, and Sanaa posted that there were night shoots. On the 26th, Jennifer left Prague, as did Priyanka. After this, the crew began packing up and relocating to Morocco in droves, so it's probably pretty safe to say that the filming is all wrapped up for the Czech Republic. Before I wrap up, there's just one more thing I wanted to point out. This scene from the sneak peek with Swan was filmed at this part of the Vodendorf Studios backlot, called the Royal Palace Courtyard. A leak showed that this other side of the set was decorated with blue banners with a rising sun. So, could Sofia film this week when we know a Sun Palace servant was on set? I have no idea, but I just wanted to throw out the possibility for all you theorizers out there. With that, I'm going to wrap up this video. I know I sped through a lot, but there wasn't quite as much information to dig into during these months. Next up, I plan to cover the filming that took place in Morocco. I'm aiming to finish up these videos as soon as possible, so hopefully I can finish soon. To get notifications when that video is released, you can follow me on Twitter at GeekyEddie, or you can subscribe to my channel here on YouTube and hit the bell icon for notifications. In addition to videos, I also post links to news articles on WhatSeries.com when I remember. For the times I don't remember, it's best to follow WhatSeries on Twitter and Instagram. If you happen to have any information for us, please email us at tips@whatseries.com. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.